What's up, y'all? This is Throwing Light. I'm LTJ Reeves, and if you're not throwing light, you're not acting right. Tonight, I've got I guess, another more. I usually call people outside of Austin my leather cousins, and people in Austin as my immediate family. So I guess this would be like a nephew, a leather nephew. I have my leather nephew on here, who has become the sash son of one of my IML siblings. We've got Dave Guerrero on here. I've known Dave for a bit. We've seen evolution. I think we both evolved. Welcome to Throwing Light, Dave. You are the 2025
Hi,
person of the year. All right.
you got it.
I want to make sure because you just got your sash. I want to say in November.
That's correct.
Cool, cool. We're going to talk a little bit about that before we get started, Dave. You're here in Austin. What led you to, go from how'd your journey into coming into the leather community start?
So for the leather community, I honestly, it caught me by surprise, truthfully, because it wasn't until I started kind of venturing out, kind of checking out like the local bars and checking out the gay scene, where I kind of just started having my own awakening to that degree. But it wasn't until I started attending the Iron Bear gear nights back when the bear was on 8th Street. And I guess while I was there, I couldn't help but notice all the leather folks wearing like their amazing leather pieces, whether it be leather formals or just even just like a harness, like things of that nature just caught my attention, and I couldn't figure out why. But it wasn't until I kind of started diving deeper into the subject that I kind of realized, like, oh, there's actually like there's a culture behind it. It's not just for show, at least not usually. But yeah, that's where I kind of started doing a little bit more research and started realizing like, hey, this community actually sounds kind of cool. It's like it's a way to show off your personality, but at the same time feel empowered by doing it. And that's kind of what intrigued me about it. And before I knew it, I started joining groups like the Austin Gears, and that's where it kind of just took off. And I started being around people that I felt comfortable with, wearing leather, and it was just a good time. And I've just been pretty much rolling with it ever since.
That's awesome. What led you to pursue the title of person of gear?
That's a good question. So, truthfully, I've actually wanted to compete for, I want to say at least 2, 3 years that I actually wanted to like throw my hat into the ring and see how I would do. But up until last year, I actually was living like further from Austin. Like I lived in the outskirts, a good 30, 40 minutes away. And that kind of deterred me from wanting to be more active in the community just because, like, you know, a lot of travel, a lot of gas expenses. Like, it pretty much made me feel like I was very limited in the things I could do. But it wasn't until 2024 where I actually took the leap and decided to move closer to Austin. And thankfully, I found some friends that were renting out a room and like I could afford it. So I was just like, you know what? I'm going to bite the bullet here. So I bit the bullet, I moved out, and lo and behold, now I live like a couple of minutes from the Austin Eagles. I'm just like, hey, this actually worked out.
Cool.
But sorry, I'm kind of digressing here. But because I moved a lot closer to the bars, I kind of realized like, hey, I actually now have more time to be involved in the community. So, like whether it was to volunteer to help with clothes check it for Austin Gears or just even attending gear nights, just wearing whatever made me feel empowered. That's kind of where my leather journey started going into to where I just wanted to be around the people that I've come to know and love and feel good wearing what I'm wearing. And that's ultimately what led me to want to run for a title because at that point now I had felt I had gained a new sense of confidence. I had gained the ability to be here for my community a lot more than I was before. And ultimately I felt like I had reached the level in my confidence where I was just like, I feel like I can do this. I feel like I can represent my community and I feel like I can put in the work that needs to be done.
That's awesome. What is something particularly that you enjoy doing most in the community?
I think the biggest thing that I enjoy about the community is just ultimately meeting people because like everyone has their own story, and you never really know what that story is until you kind of just venture out and just start out with a simple hello. And from there, you kind of just get a read for what people's lives are like. Some people have a very interesting story to tell. Others, they kind of are just more relaxed about their life, and that's perfectly fine, whether it be like full of adventure or not that adventurous. Ultimately, I feel like each and every person has their own story that is worthwhile to listen to. And it's like making that time to kind of get to know one another to ultimately like form better connections. I think that's ultimately what intrigues me the most about just being active in the community.
That's awesome. So I've been doing this show for over a year, and so I'm sure a lot of the viewers at this point know what IML International Mr. Leather, which is coming up in May. I did it last year. You are now in IML class 47. In terms of getting ready and preparing for that, what has been kind of your what has your legacy been, or what do you want your legacy to be going into IML?
That's a good question. um, Truthfully, for my legacy, what I'm hoping to leave behind is a better knit community because part of my platform is simply to build bridges. So for me, that involves like participating in out of town events, making connections with groups outside of Austin to where we're just ultimately like we become siblings. Like, because in the grand scheme of things, we are siblings. Our community is one, and we truly are stronger together. So being able to have those bonds across time and space, more specifically, just, from miles and miles away, having that sense of like siblinghood and just kind of being there for one another, especially when things get rough. I think ultimately that's what I'm hoping to leave behind. Just good connections with good people and make our community stronger.
Mhm. I see you. You've been involved with San Antonio Leatherman, and in terms of doing things that create that sense of siblinghood, what are some things that you've done, or some ideas that you would like to see done in the community in terms of keeping us stronger together, keeping us unified?
Some things that I feel that just help make those kind of strong bonds is just ultimately being present. Even if it's just for like one event a year, like it's those kind of events that like you make those small but meaningful connections with people. You may not see them for days, weeks, or even months, but you know deep down in your heart that they're still there for you and you'll be there for them too. So whenever I run into title holders from across different cities or even different states or even countries, I know that the small memories I make with them at those kind of events, like for example, RGB Leather Weekend, I was down there a weekend or two ago, and I got to meet some wonderful folks that were visiting from out of the country. And like to me, those small, meaningful conversations we had made me feel like if I ever traveled to their area, like I would feel like I was still at home. That I would have somewhere safe to be. I would have people to talk to, that the world is not a lonely place, that ultimately we have each other's backs no matter how far we are.
I think that you're a big cheerleader for the community and having that sense of community, and I think that's fantastic. Being person of gear, what has this title meant to you?
Can you repeat that?
As being person of gear, what is this title meant to you, like in terms of wearing it?
What
Who do you feel you represent?
I feel that I represent the internal voice in your head that tells you to try something new. Try wearing something that you haven't worn before. Wear something that like it may not seem appealing to other people, but if it makes you feel better wearing it, then wear it. Because truthfully, the leather and kink community, we're a very diverse group of people, and I think that the biggest thing is ultimately being your own representative and wearing whatever makes you feel great. And for me, like I typically wear a lot of leather, and I love leather. Like it's just my favorite. But I also have some neoprene items. I have um, some denim, things of that nature. And it's like being able to wear those at any given time, to me, that feels like, hey, I can actually feel sexy and empowered no matter where I go because I'll always have something to wear that makes me feel like me, and it can help others feel like themselves whenever they see that.
So leather is all about empowerment for you. I know we had like a conversation briefly about like the confidence boost that a sash might, bring to your life and being more capable of maybe saying things when normally you might be silent. Do you still stand by that? Do you feel that you've gained confidence as a title holder to confront things you normally would not confront people?
Absolutely. I think that having that platform essentially, it's like with those voices that you used to internalize deep inside, like now I feel like I have the ability to say those things because ultimately now I feel like I have a community that's rallying behind me. So it's not feeling shame or guilt about what I'm going to say because ultimately I know if what I'm saying or doing is for the benefit of the community as a whole, then I know that my community will have my back just like I'll have theirs.
What are some ways that we can overcome a lot of the, we're having the struggles with the current, political administration, our trans community is under attack. What are some ways that we can keep trans people close to us, keep that sense of community with them?
I think one good technique would probably be just reassurance. Reassurance that their existence is valid, that their feelings are valid, that ultimately the people that are going to be standing with them at the front lines, we will be those people standing with them. Um, since I identify as a cisgender male, like I can't say that I understand the full perspective of a trans person, but what I can say is ultimately I know that they're a part of my community and I will have their back and I will do whatever I can with my platform to help boost their message, to tell them that we're here and that we're not going anywhere, regardless of what current legislation says. Those it's like trans people are important and I'll stand by their side.
That's awesome, Dave. So let's see, you've had your sash for about 4 months or five.
About four and change.
Or ooh, you still got 8 months to go.
uh,
Wake up
yeah,
after IML too, because it gets a little bit faster if you ride the wave. Coming to Austin, have you found there have been any hurdles to community here?
hurdles to community.
A lot of times
Um,
people say communication is one of those things. Miscommunication is a hurdle to community.
no, I definitely think that miscommunication is a big thing because I feel like people tend to rush to judgment rather than kind of like think things out and be like, hey, this person said this about me, but I feel like I should take time to process it and kind of see like maybe this is what they meant, or even just want to see clarification for what was said. But ultimately, I think it's like it's easier to react than it is to kind of just stop and think about things. So it's like I think that's how I respond generally to like whenever I hear something negative, it's just like I kind of just like give myself time to think about what was said, and then I'm like, is this true? Like, do I feel like this is something that like is true about me, or is this just someone like essentially coming up with an opinion about something that's not even true about me? But ultimately, I think it's just more of having that communication to talk to other people and be like, hey, like, is something going on? It's like, can we fix it? Like, just having that open communication can essentially resolve the majority of the problems that we have. But really quick, the other thing that I kind of feel is a barrier is, quite frankly, money. And it's like, it may seem simple on the surface, but let's be honest, leather is a very pricey thing to have. So it's like for me, like being person of gear, I have a limited collection, but it's like it's a collection that makes me feel happy and empowered. But I also know that it took quite a while to get there. It wasn't just something I bought overnight. But so I think like cost is like for gear is one barrier, but the other cost I'm talking about also is just overall, just geographically, that's like a lot of my friends live out in the suburbs, so they take nearly 30, 40, even sometimes an hour to drive just to come hang out with us at the Austin Eagle. And it kind of sucks because, it's like they have affordable housing where they live, but they also have to travel a very far distance to reunite with the community. So I kind of just wish that it would be more to where we can have our friends just live closer so that way they don't have to travel as far or use as much time to come and hang out with us. But ultimately, like, we still appreciate everything that they do because having them be there just as a form of representation, that visibility, it still matters. And we're forever grateful to have them there.
You have definitely come and supported some of the events that I've been dealing with, and I appreciate you coming. In terms of like you came to the kink one. I don't know if you've been to the Naked People reading, have you?
I haven't yet. I tried to last time, but I had a
But
schedule
you've been to
conflict, so I
the
could.
Gear and Kink one though, right?
Sorry?
You've been to the Gear and Kink one though.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, cool, cool, cool. So in terms of expression in our community and our sexuality and things like that, sometimes, especially with the administration that we're dealing with, being in the state of Texas, we are stereotyped a lot. Do you think there are ways that what are some ways? Okay, this is what I believe. I believe that there is a mission to dehumanize us. And my question to you is, how do we keep humanizing ourselves? And maybe ways that aren't traditional, like we it's easy for them to disregard us because of gender and sexuality and try to not take us seriously. What are some ways to keep the human in our, in our playing field, to be human to these people? What are some ways that we can humanize trans people, that we can humanize, queer people, the Qs, the Bs? Like how do we keep humanizing our community?
Ultimately, I think the biggest weapon we can use to fight those kind of, I guess, beliefs is just simply education. I think it'd be useful for our community to have just like open forums, to have people of the community in general just like come show up and then ask questions. So that way, whenever we have panelists from like various backgrounds, whether it be for trans, non-binary, like furries, leathermen, it's like regardless of the community, we can have a representative up there and be like, hey, like we want to be able to assure you, like we are benefiting the community. We are trying to help one another. We want to be there for each other. Like, what can we do to answer your questions to help you feel a bit more at ease, or at least to be more well understanding of what we do? Because having being able to distinguish the leather and kink community from the sexual community, I think, is one of the biggest things. It's just knowing that it's not entirely sexual, that there actually is a sense of camaraderie and family and strong values, pretty much. And being able to just be open with the community, being present in the community, and showing them that we are more than the leather we wear, that we are more than the gear we wear. It's like ultimately we want to show them that we're all everyday Joes. Nothing has changed, regardless of what we wear or who we are. We are all there for each other.
That's great points. All right, Dave, we're at the point of the show where I ask the same question. Is there any aspect of our community that you feel that we are not shedding light on or not shedding enough light on?
Hmm. I would say that one of the things that we haven't really shed enough light on are uh, polyamorous relationships. I feel that even though they exist within our community, I feel like there's still a bit of a stigma there because ultimately, the I don't want to say it applies to everybody, but to the majority of folks, they're used to the idea of a cis hetero relationship to where it's just like two people together and that's it. There shouldn't be more. And I feel that having polyamorous relationships visible and just discussed about in an open forum kind of just makes it to where it's like we see those kind of relationships, we acknowledge those kind of relationships, and ultimately we hope that we can love those kind of relationships. And it's not just entirely, just being like, oh, he's in a polyamorous relationship, it's like we ultimately find love where we find love, and we want people to recognize that Um, it just happens that way sometimes where we have more than one loving partner. And ultimately, my hope is that polyamorous relationships just get more credit and more acknowledgement as time goes by.
That was a new one, Dave. I haven't gotten that yet. So thank you for bringing that up and bringing awareness to that. Well, we are at the end of Throwing Light. And so I now let my guest close the show out. So, Dave, I'm going to count to three. And when I count to three, you're going to say, if you're not throwing light, you're not acting right. Okay.
All right.
1, 2, 3. If you're not throwing light, you're not acting right. You ready?
All right.
1, 2, 3.
If you're not throwing light, you ain't acting right.
There we go. Thank you so much, Dave. Thank you. I look forward to your journey. You are still fresh into it. So I am excited that you have still have some time to really harness the energy of this. I wish you the best, Rymel. I will be there in a capacity support to support my whole Texas family and my sad son. But being that, thank you so much, Dave, for being on the show. Y'all, everyone that's watching, it's been Throwing Light. I'm LTJ, and we are out. Bye.
Bye, y'all.